This is coffee number 5. I'm your host, Lara Schmoisman. Hi, Van. Thank you so much for being here. We had a previous conversation and there's so much fun. So I want to see if we can put everything in this podcast and talk.
It'll be a start.
Yeah, let's start the conversation at least. So I'm big at work culture. Everyone knows that. I'm big at leadership and mentorship. So I'm so fascinated what you do. It's like, how did this started? Let's start for that.
Sure. So my work is in bringing creativity into the workplace, and I do it around team development and leadership training. And then I do team development and leadership all within the lens of creativity, play, and experiential learning. And the reason I did this is because creativity has just been a part of my life my entire life. I'm not a trained artist. I've just always been very creative. But then I didn't do anything with it, right? I went into the corporate world, the corporate environment, went into learning and development in the corporate environment. And what I found in the corporate environment is that training was so dry and I hate to say, but boring. And it's oftentimes like there was no retention of the information, right? You would show up for a workshop, you would learn the information, and then you would just leave and go about your day.
Well, and it's hard sometimes to do team retention.
Team retention as well? Is that? Oh yeah.
Yes, having a team that is involved with each other makes sure that the team will stay longer and happier.
That's right. That's right. And we do differentiate this idea of team building and team development, right? So team building, I look at as having fun together, like having fun together, creating space where you guys can play together, which is all amazing and great. That definitely helps build trust. But then there's other element of team development, which is more around how do we work well together, right? And going a little bit deeper, like what values do we share? Do you know what I bring to the workplace? My special skills, the project that you're doing with your team, the hidden talents.
Yes.
Right. Like
well, that's a challenge.
That's a challenge. That's
yes.
Right. But things like that really help to develop a bond for the team. But in terms of workplace culture, I think those things are so important because when you train people on just skill, it doesn't build those bonds. But if you train people in mindset, behavior, and skills, then you're really addressing the person holistically. And then when you add creativity to it, what you're then bringing in is a tool that's innate in all of us.
I'm always curious because and I just implemented this in my own company, the team reviews. We have 2 reviews, mid of the year and end of the year. Mm-hmm. And I always found those reviews in corporate world super dry.
Yeah.
That the goals were basically about, I want to bring this money to the team. They weren't personal goals. Mm-hmm. So for me, when I was doing these interviews, was like, what's your personal growth goal in the company? Mm-hmm. What do you want to learn? How you want to grow in the company? And I found out that many times they don't even know what possibilities they have to grow because people weren't educated to that. We're like, okay, you do this, you get a promotion. You've been so many years, you get a promotion. But there are so many other ways to grow in a company. So how you transition a team, the team beliefs or core values into a creative belief?
So I think for me, a lot of it is around, and for what you're saying right now, it's so true. People, because you took me back to when I was in corporate, where those performance reviews, even if I had a say in them, the questions that were asked were so dry and static that I didn't even feel like after the review, it was really benefiting me at all, other than the percentage of my raise that year.
Yeah.
Right. But the way I look at creativity into the workplace and how it affects things like personal and professional growth is the fact that when you're allowing for creativity in the workplace and when you nurture creativity in the workplace, what you're really doing at the base of it all, the foundation of it, is you're giving people a place to have their voice heard in different ways. Because not all people are going to express themselves if we're just sitting one-on-one talking like this. But when you add in these creative elements, you get people to lower their barriers and really create and collaborate together.
Absolutely. Like, for example, when you interview someone to your team, to join your team, you're interviewing someone that you want to bring added value to your team, of course. But then I feel like when the companies many times is how you can keep giving to the company, but at the same time is we're not giving anything back. So I think that we need to incorporate that thought of the company needs to grow and need to help these employees or team members become to bloom, how the company can mentor you, what the company can do for you to grow, and to know that the possibilities of growth are beyond your position. So you mentioned the word creativity in this team development or team culture building. How do you give me an example? Like if you my team is completely virtual, what would you do?
So completely virtual is something not new to you, but new to us, right? Since March, all of our work was live, so we had to make a pivot. And trust me, that did happen fast, and almost was a a a, a time of just hunkering down and not knowing what to do. And in that uncertainty, something just evolved from that, right? Based on my client needs. So in this virtual environment, what I often do, and it's the same as I did in person, we've just transitioned it to be available virtually. But for an example, is looking at a company mission. So we have this workshop where I look at a company mission. I've worked for many companies where there's a mission statement where I had zero attachment to that mission statement, right? It was something that someone wrote a long time ago or someone wrote recently, but I had no say in it. It was just our company mission. So how do you expect anyone who is working on the ground floor or in your company to be attached to that mission? And the only way I could figure out how to do that, and this is why we run this workshop, is letting people look at their personal values first, their personal mission, and allowing time in the workplace to do this, not go home and do this on your own, allowing time in the workplace to look at your values, look at your personal mission. Now let's look at that company mission and how does that align? So now you've built this bridge between my connection and my personal values to what the company is doing.
Let's talk about team building because that fascinates me. How you can create in a team that they never had this culture of team building or they didn't have team culture, but the only thing that they were working on in the real world in an office, and how people socialize is like what we call in my team kitchen time. Water cooler. I didn't want to sound that old. So I call it kitchen time. And what I would love is like you're going to grab your coffee and there you run into someone, even if it's not in your department, and you chat a little, and that's how you get to know people. Or when you going for lunch, if you bring your lunchbox or whatever. And now in the digital world, how do you do that? How do you create a space for kitchen time?
It has to be intentional, right? It's because before when we were in the office and you ran across someone in the kitchen or by the water cooler, if we are that old, then
We
you
didn't say that.
yeah,
We don't even know what the water cooler is.
right? Yeah, it's sort of like a rotary phone. We don't know what that is either.
Yes, no.
The idea of team building was always important. It becomes, I think you and I both believe, even more important now because now we have to be intentional about it because we don't have those moments where we're running across each other. So the way I suggest clients do it now is incorporate it into any interaction you have, especially meetings. Instead of getting right to work, tell people to come 15 minutes early to chat. Open up the room early so people can talk. Do a couple of exercises in the beginning. They're just fun, get to know each other exercises that you facilitate or ask someone on your team to facilitate, right? It doesn't have, you don't always have to be in charge. Make it a group project. The things that you told me, Laura, that you do with your team, like these monthly challenges, they're funny and they're fun, but what you're really doing is getting people to know each other.
Absolutely. That's a goal that we know each other and we have a lot of fun because now we can tease others about what they did. And many times we found something that I completely encourage is maybe a meeting ends, but we leave the Zoom open.
Mm-hmm.
And we just there and someone say, "Oh, so hot here." And the conversation starts and then we have 2 minutes that we talk about nothing
Mm-hmm.
But also, there is something really important. It's the leadership. If they feel like the leader is not allowing those spaces, people, it's never going to happen. So my team knows that I encourage those spaces. When someone new comes, they're like walking on eggshells. What's happening here? I don't know.
Right? Can I really act like this?
Yeah, and we tease each other a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and we have fun with each other, because otherwise it's you cannot stay there working by yourself in a room. We're like, I think 46 now in the team, and I can tell you that I feel like I know those people so much. I never seen them face to face,
Mm-hmm.
but if I see them, I just need to hug them because I know them for a long, long time and I know them really well.
Right. And it's because of the leadership style you use, right? You use a very inclusive and engaging leadership style that allows for that behavior because you model it. So I think that's the lesson here for leaders is if you're expecting your people on your team to connect and be involved and be engaged, you have to show it and you have to create the space for it. So what you said earlier about now they're all virtual and now they're all virtual, we have to conscientiously say, how do I create that space for connection? Because people, like you said, if you give them the space, they're going to connect because we all crave that. Even more now than probably ever, like we crave that connection. So if you as a leader create the space, that's pretty much all you have to do. They will fill it.
Yeah, something that I always say is that I design my company culture. And you as a leader, you need to put, like, I'm all about strategies, everyone knows that, but you need to put a strategy to your work culture. I learn from jobs that I like and from jobs that I didn't like that much. So you use all that experience as a leader and you can create, but you need, things don't happen just because.
Absolutely.
You need to put a plan. Like we have in our calendar that there is a team challenge every last Friday of the month, or there is every day's everyone who has a birthday that they will have the last 10 minutes a happy hour. And it's in the calendar and everyone look forward to those spaces. Then there are a lot of spaces that they are improvisation and you cannot bring the whole team together. But there are a lot of departments, in my company at least, that they don't work so much one with each other. But in these community places, they're a way that they get to know each other as well.
Right. And they can connect there. And what you said there, that's in your calendar every Friday, every month. I think that's a very important point to make too, because you can't be the leader who says we're going to value creativity and connection today, but then not do it again. Right. So to build the trust of your team, they need to know that it's going to be consistent.
Yeah, then there is something else. I mean, and I always mention this. A lot of people think that information is power. And information is only power if you know what to do with the information. So I think that it's important also to inform everyone in the team where the company's at.
Absolutely. Yeah. The transparency of that. Right.
Yeah. And there is a lot of companies like you work somewhere, but you really don't know what's going on in the big picture.
Absolutely. And even worse, where they misinform you.
Exactly. So how do you change that part of the culture, starting with the leaders? Because I mean, I'm sure that if a leader or a boss call and say, guys, we need to do this activity, uh, people will come. But if you don't transform the beliefs of the leader or the leaders, it's not important to start there first, to work just with the leadership style and then bring it back to the work culture?
Yes. Well, it's interesting because when you think about company culture, you think of the whole company and that everyone needs to be involved in the culture. And a lot of my work is based on bottom up, right? I love like the ideas, the innovations. It doesn't have to come from the top down, but I do believe that culture, if there's going to be a shift in culture, has to come from the top down. Because how can people change it from underneath if they're getting resistance from the top. So I do believe that. And when I do go into organizations and work with leaders, it's all about mindset shift first, right? So like what are your, I do a project with them, and depending on the topic we're talking about, it's called like a possibilities matrix. So when you think about what are your limiting beliefs about your team, right? So think about what are your limiting beliefs about your team, and then turn that limiting belief into a possibility. So maybe my limiting belief about my team is no one really wants to get involved. No one's proactive enough. And then turn that limiting belief into a possibility. I have the, you know, I have the, what you want to say the word power, or I have the influence to get people involved, right? So like if you start with that impossibility of like no one wants to get involved, you're not going to go anywhere. But if you can just shift that thought to something positive and something that has to do with possibilities, and say I have the authority and the influence to help people get involved, then you clearly now have possibilities that you can come up with.
Yeah. But also there is a belief that the only way to grow in a company is by accepting leadership. And that's not, it shouldn't be true. It's like leadership is not for everyone. Leadership is a skill or a talent, like you have, you're good at drawing, or you're doing good at math, or it's something else. It's just a skill. So
that you can learn is what you're saying.
You can learn it or not. You can be not interested in being a leader, but you need to know in the company that you have the space to grow in a position that doesn't require leadership.
So you're saying that most companies, when you're talking about the like people who are working in a company, companies assume that they want to become a leader.
Exactly. That's the only way to grow in the company. In order, like for example, let's say you are a graphic designer. In order to become to grow in the company, you need to grow to be a manager and have people be under you. Otherwise, you cannot grow. And what I do believe, if someone can have in the career of graphic design and be a top designer and make as much money as a coordinator or as a manager, but because they chose that path, not because they're maybe not interested in being in a leader or a manager.
I love that idea, because I do find in the work I do that oftentimes when you're good at a skill, you get promoted to manage people to do that same skill, except you've never had management training or maybe even management interest.
Exactly. And because management also includes a lot of paperwork and other things that is not interesting. So I'm trying to see how we can separate those two values, how people can grow in a company with their skills, but not necessarily taking a leadership position.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think that's a larger question, clearly, and I think that's an interesting question to ask, and look into your own personal company, and if that seems to be an issue in other companies, for that company to look at and be like, okay, well, we're losing people, right? We're losing people with these skills and talents because we're pushing them to move up this ladder that they don't want to move up. So what can we, how can we be more innovative? How can we be more creative and come up with different ways for them to grow? And that really speaks to me in the sense that I just had one of my clients, I was on a call with her the other day, and she said she's a VP of marketing, but she's doing no marketing. And she loves the creative part of marketing. Yeah, and I think she got into marketing because she wants to be creative. She wants to come up with the ideas.
Oh, believe me, it happens to me. I own a company and I found myself doing so many things instead of doing the things that I'm really good at the strategy. And I try, now I'm in the position I can separate myself and put other people to do certain things. Mm-hmm. But also you need to know those are my real skills. Those are what I'm good at.
Yes.
So I feel like culture is pushing you to do certain things, mm-hmm. instead of, and because company, like you said, they're losing talent and they're losing people because those people that they have no interest in managerial, they get burnt out at some point.
Right. The other aspect of that is I do feel like there might be a room for improvement, because again, I feel that a lot of companies, they promote people because they've been really good and successful at their position in their skill, did they get promoted to manager and just get left in that role with no support and no training. And I'm wondering if, even if you're extremely good at a skill and you value that skill and you love that skill, if there'd be more interest in moving into a managerial role if you actually learned how and you actually supported in it.
That's something I work really hard. I have 6 coordinators in the company, area coordinators, and we work a lot in these leadership skills, in this design of the work culture, and we come out with problems that they can come to me, how we resolve it. And I think a lot is in the communication, and you as a leader, and like you said, have training is about having mentorship, that if you want to put someone in this coordinator position on manager position, you need to mentor them and breed them to be into that position.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It can't just be because you're good at your skill, you get to move up. And that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that performance review. Mm-hmm. It's interesting where a performance review is, I remember when I worked for a large pharmaceutical company, the performance review was like, so, senior position level 1, then the next thing for me was senior position level number 2. I was like, but what if isn't there more to it, right? Like, shouldn't that be up to me? At least shouldn't have a say of
exactly that's my point
of what my growth should look like. So so I think that there is space for that within companies where in the performance review, maybe it's something different. Like, so what are your personal goals here? Like, what would, if you could design your next level, what would that look like?
Well, that's what one of the questions that we did is like, what are you interested in learning? And we found fascinating things that people were willing to learn new software because they feel like they can apply it somehow at what they do, bringing added value and growth in their position. But maybe their position, it won't fit in the box anymore. They will become a hybrid. And I think corporations have a problem with not being able to put positions in boxes.
Yes. And I think the bigger they get, it's easier to have these boxes, right? So it's easier for the company to have let's just have these boxes and fit people in versus let's look at the person first.
Exactly. And that's where you come in, bringing the creativity and bringing those connections back.
That's right. That's right. And even if it is, so I look at when I bring creativity into an organization, the value of it is on an individual level and on a higher, company return on investment value as well. So I go into organizations and teach these skills, these tools, how to think more creative, how to solve problems with creative tools. And what I find oftentimes is individuals reach out to me and say, I love that. I'm more creative at home now. I was on the beach, I picked up rocks and brought them home and painted them with my kids, which is something they wouldn't have done before. So even on the smallest level, bringing creativity makes a difference in individual lives. And then ultimately in the corporate life, what I would like to be seeing is companies valuing the fact that every person in the organization is creative, can come up with good ideas, and that they're now looking across sectors, across divisions, across levels of their organizations for ideas to solve problems. And that really solves a lot of the retention problem as well, because what I find is all those things, now we're virtual, but I've gone to so many companies where they have a whole floor of, video games, ping pong tables, kitchen with free food, which I think are all great perks and gives people the space to connect and play. But that's not going to keep a person there.
Absolutely not. I mean, I remember working in this company that I had to stay until crazy hours every single day because there was bad planning. But they will give us a perk, bagels, once a week, and they will give us dinner if we start late, which it became like everyday thing. For me, a perk was going to my family every day in a normal hour.
So I think those perks are nice to have, and they're the easy go-tos, right? They're the easy go-tos for companies because they see, like you were saying before, they see the example of, oh, what's Google doing? Oh, they've got a tea room, they've got this. Let's replicate that for our company. But But what they also don't see is that Google is strongly invested in professional development. They value the ideas that come from their teams.
They go together. The ping pong table is the only thing that people see, because that's an easy fix. Just put a ping pong table, but the other part of the work, creativity, development, that's work.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. We're on the same page about this.
3 tips for someone who wants to bring creativity to their work life.
3 tips for people who want to bring individuals you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just like very simple, because I think creativity doesn't have to take a long time. So one thing is put markers on your table.
Okay.
Right? Put markers on your table. So rather than just writing down notes or using your computer, sketch ideas. Right? Yeah, I'm sure you. I wouldn't be surprised you have paints on there too.
No paint here, but several colors.
Is the idea that creativity can create more than you consume. And when I talk about consumption, I'm talking about when I have time during my workday, or if I have time and I have a break, I usually pick up this. I'm scrolling through Instagram. I'm looking at news. That's consumption. And that doesn't do anything for me except maybe build on my anxiety and my uncertainty. So I always give people a couple things to do. So rather than picking up your phone, spend a couple minutes doing something creative. So again, if you think about a problem you're having or a challenge you're having at work, sketch ideas. Another way to do it is a challenge you're having at work, something you want to innovate on. Oftentimes we're just sitting here like this, staring at a computer, trying to come up with new ideas. Pull out a picture in a magazine. Look up any image on the computer and look at that image and ask yourself, how does this image, what characteristics of these images remind me of the challenge I'm trying to face or I'm trying to solve? And then ask yourself again, and then write down your ideas. And then ask yourself again, looking at this image, what characteristics of these images help me reflect on a way I can solve for my problem? So now you putting a visual cue to it. And then I guess the last one would be, one more, I think, what I like to do is giving yourself a challenge. I know you guys like challenges. And simple challenges like grab 5 things off your table and then challenge yourself, like build something as high as I can. Build something that moves, right? So that you're getting that because I think of creativity as a capacity and not a skill. Oil painting is a skill.
Yeah, everyone can be creative in different ways.
In different ways. Yeah, your creativity is going to look different than anyone else's creativity. So since creativity is capacity, we can all expand on that capacity. So you give yourself these little moments to stretch that creative capacity, you're going to become more creative.
I love it. Love it. Well, Van, thank you so much for being here. This was an amazing chat, and we'll keep chatting.
We certainly will. This is just our first connection for sure. Thank you for having me.
It was so good to have you here today. See you next time. Catch you on the flip side. Ciao, ciao.